TheBradRules!
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, The Manhattan Project, may very well be one of the most forgotten about games in the TMNT video game universe. It was released for the NES in 1992, the very same year that Turtles in Time was ported to the Super Nintendo. So it's pretty clear as to why that is. The 16-bit era was in full effect and the NES just couldn't measure up to the Super Nintendo visually, or in terms of what it could handle. But the Manhattan Project is a fun and more than competent TMNT beat 'em up, and it's actually pretty impressive for what it was able to pull off. In my last review, I talked about how the NES port of the original arcade game was a bit of a letdown, and it was cheap as hell. Well, this game definitely is better and fairer, but it's a hard-as-nails game, and it's a long one. Oh dear God, is this game long. 8 stages, and they're long and honestly pretty dragged out. Not like it's agonizing or anything, but then again, this game is very challenging, and the bosses are tough. The enemies are a lot less cheap in this game, but then you have the rock soldiers who certainly are. I mean, how the heck are you supposed to go about beating these guys? Whenever they step onto the screen, I know I'm getting hit. This game feels like a true gauntlet. And before we go any further, I want to say how entertaining I find that the plot sees Shredder turning Manhattan into a floating island while the Turtles are vacationing in Florida. I was waiting for Knuckles to show up and try to protect the Master Emerald.
What's going on here?
Also, it's really cool how when you lose a life, you get to change turtles. You don't need to wait to use a continue to do so, like in Turtles in Time. I also love how the foot soldiers were animated to show more personality in this game, even more so than in Turtles in Time. They come jumping out of the water on this stage like they're fucking dolphins. That's just funny. And in the starship, these goofballs just come rolling on in like steamrollers. Plus, these foot soldiers will toss sand in your eyes, which is the very definition of fighting dirty. Fighting it out on a Florida beach, the setting for the Turtles' vacation, is a very unique opening stage, and I love how the next stage sees you surfing your way back to New York for a nice flow between the levels. The collection of villains is also quite good. We get the usual suspects like Bebop and Rocksteady, as well as Shredder and Krang, but we also get Slash, Tokka, Razor, Leatherhead, and the debuting Ground Chuck and Dirtbag. I really like that they picked Ground Chuck and Dirtbag because they were the only villains who weren't in Turtles in Time. And did they honestly make Slash into a mini-boss? That's a bit of an odd choice. And they used this Mother Mouser mini-boss twice. Why not throw in another villain instead? Oddly enough, a Triceraton appears on the box art, yet he is nowhere to be found in the game. I have a feeling one was probably scheduled to appear, but for whatever reason, didn't make it in. These guys are hard, and they hit hard, and I found Bebop to be pretty cheap. And what the hell is he wearing on his head? I found this to be a pretty humorous and bizarre choice. Also, getting uppercutted by Tokka results in even more damage, as it can send you right into this electric billboard. That's actually pretty cool, although kind of annoying. Fighting these bosses is also hell because the stages are quite lengthy, and by the time you get to them, you're worn out. And they can be pretty cheap with their attack patterns. And they are stacked with health. They definitely could have trimmed these stages down a bit. I mean, it's seriously overkill, and considering that this game is pretty tough, it will not go unnoticed. The stages in Turtles in Time were the perfect length, and we did not need them to be extended so greatly. I really do like the special attacks, although they sacrifice health like in the SNES port of Turtles in Time, but these definitely feel more special. I really like how Donnie jump rolls right at an enemy. You can also use your special attacks when your health gets really low, so it acts as a desperation attack. And I think this is a really good feature, and it kind of evens things out a bit. I also really like the fact that you can throw enemies in this game, which you couldn't do in the arcade game. And it's different than in Turtles in Time. The turtles actually throw the enemies with their weapons. Sadly, you can't throw them at the screen like in Turtles in Time, but I still like it. And you can't even throw enemies in the Hyperstone heist. So this 8-bit game actually has an advantage over a 16-bit Turtles game. Playing this on the Cowabunga collection is a big plus because it removes the slowdown and the rampant sprite flickering the original game suffered from, because Konami really took the NES to the limit with this one. The OST once again is fantastic, and the opening stage just hits all the right notes and vibes with this upbeat tune. And the boss music is fast-paced and menacing, and it's just what you want to hear in a tough battle. The Manhattan Project has a lot of positives, and although it's less cheap than TMNT 2, it's still a brutally hard game that is a little too unforgiving at times. I appreciate a challenge, but a lot of it is due to the overly long levels and the ludicrous amount of health the bosses have. The game just wears you down, but it's still a fun experience. Playing it on the Cowabunga collection with enhancements is definitely a definitive way to experience this one, and if I didn't play it this way, I'd be looking at the game over screen quite a bit because I died a lot during my playthrough. Honestly, this game is very impressive for what it managed to accomplish on limited hardware. Konami took full advantage of the NES and pushed it to its limits. They attempted to give NES owners their own Turtles in Time caliber game, just like they would do for the Genesis with the Hyperstone heist later that year. And they succeeded to a certain extent. This game is good, but it's certainly not Turtles in Time, and the Hyperstone heist is still better as well. However, it's definitely worth a playthrough, and you're sure to have a lot of fun with it. So guys, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Have you ever played the Manhattan Project? Do you prefer it to Turtles in Time, or are you like me and think that Turtles in Time is still superior? I'd love to know. Let's discuss it down below. And please subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bells to get all the notifications when I post all my new videos. I want to thank all my subscribers for your continued support, and thank you all for watching. I'll see you next time.